If you're just getting into collecting and listening to vinyl records, Crosley is probably one of the first turntable brands you've heard about. Ever since the comeback of vinyl a few years ago, Crosley has been one of the most well-known makers of turntables among people who are either just getting into records for the first time and people who are getting back into vinyl after throwing away their turntables years ago. And it's easy to see why. Their turntables are really affordable. For about $100 you can get a complete portable record player set with speakers, preamplifier, and cartridge built in. In a market where you can easily spend that much on just a cartridge, these all-in-one deals look pretty attractive. But there's another side to the Crosley story. Among the vinyl collecting community, Crosleys are easily the most hated of brands. Commenters on Reddit's vinyl forums will jump to condemn Crosleys as cheaply made junk. Prominent audio and music critics have said that Crosleys will give new record collectors a bad impression of what vinyl can offer.
The big problem that I see, and it's a problem, is cheap, cruddy turntables being sold to kids at stores like Urban Outfitters and Target. You can go to Target and you can buy a $30 pressing of Dark Side of the Moon and a $60 Crosley I name names. I don't care. I name names. Crosley turntables are very bad for this business. Kids are going to buy these cruddy turntables. They'll play Dark Side of the Moon 5 times and then the grooves will all be chewed up and they'll say, this is a stupid hobby. Why did I get into this? And that's why that has to be nipped in the bud.
Some critics hate them so much that they feel the need to remove them from the market in the most permanent way possible.
We have a microwave oven transformer. We're going to feed directly into the line input as well as other holes, and we'll see what kind of outcome we get. How can this thing deal with 1500 volts?
Can a turntable really be so bad that it needs to be burned at the stake? Today we'll find out with a look and listen to one of Crosley's turntable setups. So here we have a genuine, bona fide Crosley Collegiate all-in-one turntable, which I got a couple of years ago for a Christmas present when people were looking for a trendy thing to get me. And since I was getting back into vinyl at the time and starting to buy more records, they figured that this would be a cool thing to have so that I could play my records, I don't know, on the go or in my, in my room or in the bathroom or wherever I happen to be. So I didn't know much about Crosley or their reputation when I first got this, so my impressions of it weren't really biased. I noticed that they had a very retro look. They kind of copy the classic design of all-in-one turntables that were popular in the 50s and 60s. And they may have actually been around at that time too, so I don't know. Maybe they're just repeating themselves. This is one of the things that attracted me to it at first was when I saw that it had these relatively big speakers for a portable system here at the front, and there are actually 2 speakers here, but as I quickly realized, having stereo sound in a system this small is really pointless, because unless you're sitting 3 feet in front of it and facing directly at it, you're not going to hear anything, so it's basically pointless. You might as well just have one mono speaker and you'll get the same effect. So there's 2 clasps here to keep things shut when you're moving it around. There's a handle at the back here for transportation. Although that's kind of a weird design choice, because why would you hold it like this when the speaker's hanging down? It seems odd. But anyway, lifting the lid up, you quickly notice that it seems like this is very flimsy and going to fall off, but actually it's designed that way. There are actually half hinges here, which just hook into the metal here, that it will come off, and that is by design, because the way this is that you actually cannot have the lid sitting up like this while you are playing a 12-inch record, because it will not fit into this space. It has to be further back, which I don't know if that's a poor design choice or what they could have done, but I guess they had to find a way to make things compact. And this is really where the big disadvantages of the system come into play, is the fact that for portability they sacrifice so much. Here you see that they made the turntable platter small so that it would fit into this compact space. But the problem with that is that it ends up being flimsy. As you can see, I can move it with my hand and it just kind of shakes around. This is also a flimsy plastic design that isn't solid and has no weight to it at all, which really isn't ideal for a turntable platter, because you want your platter to be heavy and ideally made out of something like steel or heavier plastic or acrylic kind of construction, because that way it will be able to hold your record, hold the whole thing, and make sure that it's able to spin at the correct speed and that its weight is properly distributed. Now this turntable, because it's small and flimsy, the entire record doesn't contact it, which means that if there's any warp or irregularity in it, it may slip because it's not holding the entire weight of the record. And that was an issue with a few of my records early on, is that they wouldn't spin at the correct speed because part of them wasn't touching and was slipping under over top of the platter. And so that was one of the first big tip-offs that there was a problem with this design. Also, these feet here can leave marks on records if they're left on the platter for a significant length of time, which I haven't done because I store my records after I'm done playing them, but still, it's not the best design choice. Moving on, the tone arm follows this same kind of cheap design. This feels like it's made out of plastic. There's not a lot of weight or substance to it. It seems very flimsy. At the end of the head shell there is an Audio-Technica P-mount cartridge here, which, Audio-Technica is a good brand, but this is such a very cheap cartridge. This retails for about $5 online, and that gives you a sense of just how cheap we're dealing with here, because you can buy $5 would normally get you like a record brush or something like that, sometimes not even that. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here. That's the kind of cheapness that's going on here. To this turntable's credit, it does use a moving magnet style cartridge, whereas most Crosleys have used a ceramic type of cartridge. And ceramic cartridges are notorious for tracking very heavy and putting a lot of weight on records to get enough signal, and also producing low sound quality. This one, however, isn't much better because when you put it on a record, it's immediately apparent that it's putting a lot of force down, because a lot of times the record will actually warp downwards when you put the needle on. And you can see why, because there's no counterweight at the end. There's no way of adjusting how much force your needle is putting down onto your record or adjusting that. You just have to accept whatever weight the manufacturer has put in there, and that can be very dangerous, because if you put too much force on a record, it's going to wear down at the grooves faster and you're not going to be able to enjoy your music. It's also going to reduce sound quality. And in a unit like this that's very flimsy, you can tell that there's really no quality control put into this at all. So this could be tracking at any weight and you wouldn't know it for sure until you got out a scale, which would probably cost more than the unit itself. Anyway, here you have your 45 adapter, which is par for the course. Doesn't really add or take away anything from the value of the turntable itself. Here you can adjust your tone. One of the weaknesses of this design that becomes apparent rather fast is that in order to hear anything over the speakers, you have to turn the volume up to at least 50% on the knob. And, that really shows you how feeble the energy is that's going through here and how feeble the current really is. It's not the best design at all, really. Here you can control whether the 3 speeds, this one goes up to 78, but as a lot of people will point out, you actually need a different stylus to play 78 RPM records properly, otherwise it will not track the grooves correctly. And this turntable doesn't have that, so if you play a 78 on here, it's not going to sound good and it might actually wear down the grooves faster. So that's really a disadvantage that the Crosley has. On the side here you can see one of the main selling points of this turntable, which is the USB output adapter, and that is useful for connecting to a PC so that you can record your records easily. For people who are interested in transferring, these kind of USB turntables are very popular, and I thought it would be convenient for digitizing my own records. They were decent enough to include a cord, so that's good. So I decided maybe it'd be useful for transferring my records to digital, because even if the speaker quality isn't that great on here, maybe the output quality will be better and I can just enjoy the digital versions of my records without having to hook up my larger turntable setup to the sound card of my computer and all that jazz. So I decided to do that, but I quickly realized that the sound quality that this turntable puts out, regardless of which speakers you listen to it on, really just isn't up to par with, any other quality turntable. But I figured you want some evidence to back up these claims, so what we're going to do right now is an audio comparison between some recordings I made of an album using this Crosley turntable setup and other recordings of the same album that I made using my Pioneer setup downstairs. These will be samples from Rush's album Moving Pictures. So basically I'm just going to let you listen to some clips of it and decide which one you prefer the sound of. So here's how I've set up the test. I'm going to play a few samples from different songs on the album. You're going to hear two versions of each sample. One was recorded on the Crosley Collegiate USB turntable with the Audio-Technica cartridge mentioned earlier, while the other was recorded on the Pioneer PL514 turntable with a Nagaoka MP110 cartridge. When one of these covers on the screen is highlighted, you're hearing one of the turntables. When the other is highlighted, you're hearing the other. Your job is to guess which recording belongs to which turntable, and which one you prefer. I should also note that all of these samples have been encoded in the same file format at the same bitrate and sample frequency.
Tom Sawyer, he gets high on you, and the space he invades, he gets by on you. Today's Tom Sawyer, he gets high on you, and the space he invades, he gets by on you. Turbine freight, too far outside the wire, where my white-haired uncle waits. On the turbine freight, too far outside the wire, where my white-haired uncle waits. Still, a dying mind become a shape shift.
Well, what did you think? If you said that the Pioneer was number 1 on the left and the Crosley was number 2 on the right, you're correct. After comparing the two recordings, I think the difference in quality is obvious, even without carefully listening. The Crosley Collegiate delivers thin, flat, and bright sound that lacks a lot of detail. It's clear from the imprecise, sibilant notes on the recording that the stylus isn't able to track the groove properly, and since the cartridge is mounted permanently in place and the arm has no counterweight, it's impossible to adjust the tracking or vertical pressure without completely upgrading the arm. Since a better tone arm and cartridge would cost more than the whole player is worth and wouldn't fit the turntable anyway, this is pointless. But the most damning flaw of all is that the Crosley's turntable spins too fast. Not only is every song recorded on the Crosley a few seconds shorter than it should be, the audio is also pitched noticeably higher than normal. The turntable did not start out like this. The problem became noticeable a couple of months after I initially got it. Wow and flutter also became noticeable, producing a wobbling sound toward the end of some records. This is a problem that normally occurs in turntables that are many years old. Since the Crosley was less than a year old at the time, it goes to show how little quality control exists for these things. Pioneer is over 20 years old and was able to keep the record spinning at a constant, correct speed. The sound it produced is rich, deep, and accurate, low on sibilance, with the instruments and vocals spread out nicely on the soundstage. Moments like the rumbling drum rolls on Witch Hunt show how dynamic and lifelike the sound is, while those moments of silence between the opening chords of Limelight show its accuracy. So to sum up, I really feel like the Crosley turntable is one of the lowest quality choices you can make when choosing a turntable. I believe that the criticisms of Crosley's quality control and its performance are justified, not to the point of probably burning it, but still. As I've said, the quality control really is non-existent. It's a cheaply made product that more runs off of nostalgia for old types of design than it does for quality sound and performance. And really it just gives a lackluster performance when playing back vinyl. Now some people may say that this comparison isn't fair because I was comparing the Crosley to a turntable setup that used a Nagaoka cartridge which costs about as much as this entire setup does. But I don't think that's really the point. The point here is to really show just how low the quality of this design is and how low the quality is compared to other turntables you can get on the market. If you're looking for a good entry-level turntable, I would recommend something that is actually much more well-designed and includes better features, such as the Audio-Technica LP 120, which includes its own counterweight and many other features that are very well-designed and high quality, or the U-Turn, which is an independently made turntable and is doing very well and performs well and gets really great reviews. And there are many others as well that you can get without breaking your bank account, including second-hand ones that you can get at many other retailers. So really, I can't think of a reason to recommend a Crosley. If you're looking to record your vinyl, there are many other solutions available than a cheaply made USB turntable, and there are just better USB turntables in general. The Audio-Technica LP 120 I think includes its own USB port, so get that one for an extra couple $100. You'll get something that lasts much longer and gets you much better quality. So those are my impressions of the Crosley Collegiate turntable, and now you know why I decided not to continue using it. Until next time, have a good one.